So this video is made as a part 2 to the complete guide to ending shin splints. It's because there's more things to talk about than just training the shin directly or the feet, things that are really close to it. If you haven't watched that video, then I suggest you do go watch that video, because there is a reality that we do need to train the tissues that are all beat up, because we need to rejuvenate them, rebuild them, and then eventually bulletproof them so they don't get more shin splints. You know what I mean? Now that you've watched that video, let's get started here. So the thing with the shin is that it's often overworked because there's weakness in other places as well. Whenever I have clients come to me that want to work on their shin splints or they're having shin pain, I always address that area. We need to work on that area. We need to get blood flow, start getting the healing process started. And then as we build strength in that area, we also have to address the hips and other things that might be causing the shin splints in the first place. Why is this getting so overworked in you and not somebody else that's doing the same amount of volume of work? And most of the time with these clients, I'm finding that the posterior chain is extremely weak and doesn't function necessarily properly. So let me go through all the muscles that we're going to talk about here, and then I'll give you the exercises so you can start building that posterior chain that brings you out of shin splints for good. So we'll start from the top. We got the gluteus, medius, and maximus. When they are weak, not active, tight, causing tension, it changes your gait pattern. This is proven with studies. And as the tibia rotates, puts more stress on the tibia. So what we need to do is strengthen them and get them to be mobile so it's not affecting your gait pattern. If the glutes aren't working, the gait is going to be altered. The hamstrings next are going to alter your stride. So specifically more in runners. If your hamstrings are really tight, which most of the time they are, because when we start getting shin splints, it's from we're sitting a bunch, maybe we're driving, maybe we're in class if you're in school, or you just sit, everyone sits a lot. Hamstrings need to be opened up and strengthened. But when they're not, it affects how we land when we're striding. So as you land, if the hamstring is tight, it's going to alter how you're landing. You're going to put more force through the lower leg, shin splints. Now you got that problem reoccurring and you're overworking the muscles that are trying to limit that until they start breaking down, pulling on the shin. You get a lot of problems there. So the hamstrings. The next one, calves. We talked about this a lot in the first video, but primarily the gastrocnemius and the soleus take a lot of load off of the shin when they are strong. So when they are weak, we get a lot of load on the shin. If you're landing and you're able to keep your heel off the ground, part of that is the calves. There's also fascia connection in there. There's also a lot of other foot and calf muscles that we talk about, part 1. But those two primarily are going to be helping you in that straight leg position, but also in that bent knee position. And the last one is the posterior tibialis, which function a lot through the feet. So if you're wondering why we have so many foot movements in part 1 for the shins, well, posterior tibialis is a main thing that it pulls on the tibia. It's connected there. So if it's not strong, which it also has a bunch of function through the arch of the foot and through the bottom of the foot in general, you get problems when that muscle gets really weak. So we need that muscle to get strong, and that's what we do in part 1. We get the posterior tibialis, rest of the foot, all the calf muscles, specifically gastrocnemius, soleus. As those strengthen up, we fix this problem, but this video is not primarily on that. It's actually on the hamstrings and the glutes. Because once you fix the whole chain, that's when you can really be confident that shin splints are gone forever. As I said, we did the foot and the lower leg. Now we're going to go to the hamstrings and the glutes. We'll start with the hamstring curl. One thing to think about with all of these is that because we're mainly focused on how the lower leg is affected by the posterior chain, the different foot angles are going to be really important. So 1, we have neutral plantar flex. 2, we have dorsiflexed neutral. These 2 are going to be important. This one, think of pushing through with the toes, like if you're on the top of your calves, and this and here, it's like if you're flexing the whole chain. So both are important, and you get more stretch here, and you get a different activation here, actually more transferable to landing, jumping, things like that. We also have where you're gonna go in and out. It's the easiest way to describe them. There's 6 different positions. So you have dorsiflexed, out, neutral, in. Plantar flexed, in, neutral, out. Those positions for both the feet are going to change a lot of the movements that we're doing here. So let me go through these movements and describe a little bit of form cues, but also give you insight onto while you're doing them, how to get the best results out of them. We got hamstring curls first. When you're plantar flexed, you're going to be weaker. So when your toes are pointed away, weaker in any of the positions, unless there's a strong imbalance for yourself. But anatomically, biologically, whatever you want to call it, muscle-wise, you're weaker if everything is balanced. So as you do it, hamstring curls, I want you to always get to where the pad touches the hamstring. And then as you're going down, you're keeping the foot in the same position. So pick a position and then work that position. The hamstring curls have a little less effect on the shin splints with the foot position because they are an open change movement. So you're not locked in quite as much. Yet you will feel the difference when you're moving the feet because 1, be a little bit stronger, and 2, might find one that you're a lot weaker. Nordics, the other knee flexion variation. So as you're doing Nordics, it's going to be quite a bit different with the foot position. So for your Nordics, if you curl your toes up this way, I think you can see it kind of, you're gonna be a little bit stronger, 1, but 2, you're able to use your calves to help more with knee flexion versus working on ankle plantar flexion. So as you're going through here, nice and strong, and through. If you have something to push against, but stay in basically a neutral foot position where you're gonna be strongest with the Nordics. So here, you can see. So that one went to plantar flexion. The heels jumped out. That is just fine. Biggest thing with Nordics that I see people do wrong is they try to jump to a flat Nordic. And you can even see I lost a little bit of tension in the Nordic while I got to the bottom there. But if you have a Nordic bench that adjusts, what you're able to do is really work on keeping the tension and focusing on the feet. So if I want to keep my feet flat while I'm here, I can actually focus on that all the way to the bottom and back up. Keeping the body a little bit more straight, just a little bit stricter. I can even pull the heel pad, making this look really easy. A little bit challenging to do while you're leaning back. Pull the heel pad out and then work to create tension into the plate with the feet and then pull back up. That's quite difficult. There's a lot of things I'm focusing on. I feel the calves immensely while I'm doing that, to the point that you got to train the calves in these different areas. Yes, this is mainly focused around the hamstrings. If I'm getting sore, most likely I'm going to be sore in the hamstrings, but the movement is going to tie in through the knee, which then ties through the hamstrings, which then ties into the calves and starts to heal those damages that are there. So just to add on to the Nordics is you can do Nordics called fascia Nordics, basically a plantar flexed Nordic where you're hooking your toes under the bar instead of having the heels there. So very similar to like the Nordic on there without the foot pad, except that is actually harder because there's nothing to hook your feet under. So when you're here, you have your feet under a solid bar. Sometimes you can use like 100-pound weights with somebody standing on them. I have the hamstring curl machine, so I just use the bottom there. And then I'm controlling down. This is actually one of my favorite for helping the shin splints in relation to the hamstrings. Now you can see, working there. I can't quite get up yet, but I can use my hands to get to the top, and it cramps your feet. But as the foot cramps, you're realizing there's weak muscles. Those weak muscles and weak fascia get stronger. Now you have more stability in the ankle, As you get that stability in the ankle, it's less hit on the shin, and you feel much better. Shin splints gone. So we're gonna keep the same pattern where you're using different foot positions. So I'm gonna show you 3 different movements and give you a little bit of why I like them and what variations I like the best. The reality is that I'm not gonna tell you one is the best because it greatly depends on where you're weak. But I can tell you which helped me and helped other people the most. Back extensions, I like them best with the toes pressing through the back plate, or basically plantar flexed. Pushing through the machine, pushing yourself as high as you can, and then going down, curling. I want to get a stretch all the way through the hamstrings and the calves. You feel a little bit differently because they are plantar flexed, and then you're moving back up. Doing reps, but also working to have weight. You can do the same thing with the different angles, out, in, dorsiflex, things like that. But that variation is what I've seen the best results with and relates the most to shin splints. Seated good mornings, where we'll be here, there's 2 different things that I really like about these in relation to shin splints. One of them is creating short foot. So working to actually squeeze the ground with both, creating pressure into the ground and then firing back up through. Oftentimes you'll see people's kind of legs want to fall, well, they want to fall out and in, but their feet start coming up, their feet start doing weird things. It just depends on where they're tight, but you want to grab the ground, keep the legs in a solid position and just move the hips. You'll start finding where you're tight in the different parts of the leg. That's where you can start building that stability because you're actually practicing it, which is very foreign to most people. They don't practice it and then wonder why it's not there when they're running, when they're walking, when they're working, when they're living life and their shins are hurting. So that's the first variation. Almost forgot. Almost cheated you out of the second one. Second one is quite challenging, and it's with your heels elevated doing seated good morning. I don't encourage you to go heavy on this one like I do the other one, but pinching the ground, going back up. And when I say pinching the ground, pinching it with the toe and the ball of the foot. The arch here is actually kind of cramping on this side and pushing back up. Here, pushing back up. You can see this shake just a little bit. It needs a little bit more strength. I need to work on it a little bit more. I was also training a client and we were doing foot exercises together, so it could be a little bit fatigued from that. The last one here is the RDL, but it's the RDL, the little different twist to it. You get the hamstrings pinned down quite a bit more. So you're gonna push your hips into a wall or a bar that is wide enough that it's not uncomfortable on your butt. And then the first variation is elevating your toes on a slant board. Then you're pushing the knees back, slightly unlocked. Hips are pushed into the wall or the pole, and then hinging at the hips, not letting the knees go forward. I want to keep everything stable from the feet to the hips. And then we're coming back up. Feel quite a bit of stretch in the calves behind the knee through the hamstring while you have the slant board there. The other variation that you do with these is on the toes here. So just like everything, yeah, you can go out, you can go in. It's going to change it quite a bit. Whenever you do a new variation, go lighter than you're expecting because you can have problems with it. It can mess up your hips quite a bit. So you want to go light, get comfortable, and then realize where your strength is. But this variation, I got the toes up, then I'm hinging down. Very much a different feeling in the calves than with them elevated. But we want those different feelings because that's the different feelings you're getting while you're shifting or you're running and you're stopping. All those different things are happening at different angles. So we need the strength with the toes up, the toes down. If you're decelerating, you might hit your heel a little bit, but we want that to be strong as you go through it. So we're saving the best for last year. It's not really the best, it's just one of my favorite ones. That's why I have this big hunker in here. Not a ton of space, but we have enough space for this because it's important for the back, which also can actually help with shin splints. Who would have thought? So as you're doing this, if you've ever seen a reverse hyper, It was created by Louis Simmons. He broke his back a bunch of times. He got back to squatting hundreds of pounds. So it's a great machine. If your gym doesn't have one, you should ask for it. I don't know why they don't have one. Other than it's a big hunker, right? So we're here, feet are in, and then your hips are lined up on the bench, and then we're holding here, and then you're swinging. The swing through the bottom is where you get a ton of stretch in the posterior chain. A key to make this more effective for the shins and stretching the posterior chain is actually flexing the toes up as much as you can. You're flexing the tibialis, everything, and it will stretch through that whole chain as you're in that bottom position where you're swinging under. You get the stretch down the entire posterior chain from the spine all the way through to the glutes, hamstrings, calves, and then to the fascia because you're flexing those feet up. Super important, one of my favorites, and has helped me extreme amounts in getting the back of the knee, the shin, relieved after I do an extreme amount of plyometrics or things like that. It's like, oh, feels a little twingy. You get on this thing, it really does feel good. All the other movements could be that for you as well, but that's why they're all here, so you can start going through them and finding which ones you're weaker in and then which ones you can build up. Oh, those are the same exercises, by the way. So, finish this off. Don't just spam all of these that I talked about. You'll get super fatigued. One, your posterior chain might be sore for days. The other thing is that when these muscles are weaker, if you are doing running and things like that, just expect that they're gonna help out the shins less while they're sore and recovering. But that's a good thing in terms of we know we hit the spot this week, because as we get that stronger, then it's gonna help out the shins more. So be cautious as you're going into, maybe you have a full day of work. You're like, I'm gonna hammer all of these posterior chain things, because they're not related. They're definitely related. That's why they're in this video. The good news is that I have a community that has all of these things written out for you with reps, sets, what exercises to do, so you don't have to think about which ones you're gonna do after a long day of work. That community link is down in the caption, but if you have any questions that you want answered first, you can send me an email, or you can just comment on this video and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I hope to see you in the next video.